Hello, my darlings. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to go over 5 sick and twisted things about the movie The Exorcist that perhaps you didn't know. Last week, I did a video on one of the real cases of exorcism that inspired William Peter Blatty to write the book The Exorcist, which led to the making of the film directed by William Friedkin. It was the case of Anna Uckland in Iowa in 1928. It's definitely a terrifying case, so don't forget to check it out. And stick around to the end of this video because the last twist may change the way you see the movie. Okay, I just have to say that Pete is laying over there and he is the most adorable thing. I can't even help myself. I don't know why I do a southern accent all of a sudden, but okay. Okay, so let me get my warning out. The following content contains material intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised. Warning, the following video also contains strong language and sometimes the use of satire or sarcasm that may provoke, trigger, or shadow the fragile egos perpetually in the clutches of toxic masculinity and the society that enforces and enables them. Oh, I forgot my tea, and I was going to have a nice hibiscus tea. Okay, so go ahead and grab your cup of tea. Let's get comfortable, and let's get started. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share because we all know and love the little twisteds out there just like us who loves this kind of stuff. Okay, so William Friedkin was coming off the success of the film The French Connection when he signed on to do The Exorcist. From my research, this guy seemed, well, not the greatest human beings to work for. He was a perfectionist and a control freak that was determined to use any and all means to get as authentic a depiction of a tortured, demon-possessed young girl as he could. And here are some of the ways he did it. First of all, the sound effects, the voice of the demon, the makeup, and the special effects were disturbing and nauseating, particularly once you realize the length at which Friedkin was willing to go to get them. The sounds of the demon in the movie are animal noises, lions growling, etc., in their normal habitats. But the sounds used for the demon also include those made by animals in a slaughterhouse. Friedkin wanted graphic sounds for the demon that possesses the child Regan, sounds that would provoke visceral reactions from anyone watching the film. Particularly when the demon exits Regan's body, the torturous agony of pain of returning to hell are produced by the sounds of pigs being led to slaughter. Friedkin wanted to trigger the deep primal button in our brain that recognizes the sound of pain, torture, fear, and cruelty. He wanted 2 reactions produced in the minds of anyone watching: violent physical extremes and imaginable fear. Goal achieved. I wanted to puke, and those sounds haunted my nightmares and my psyche for years. And many of those who saw the movie when it was released in 1973 agreed, so much so that Warner Brothers promoted the movie with barf bags. I wonder if anyone kept any of those. You know, like my mother kept newspaper articles of when JFK was shot. Kind of morbid. Now, I'm not a vegetarian, but I am really considering it now. After learning that little tidbit, I have serious concerns about whether the taste of my soul is meat flavored. I cannot not think about the animals and those sounds when I eat meat. There is a reason that slaughterhouse employees are one of the highest with suicide rates and mental health issues like PTSD. Now, like the devil, Friedkin loved free will. Voice actor Mercedes McCambridge initially wavered when asked by Friedkin to take the role of the voice of the demon. A longtime serious actor, she starred in many movies, including All the King's Men and Giant. Being a Catholic, she was hesitant of the vulgarity and subject matter that the part required. She sought the advice of a friend who was a priest who convinced her to take the part. When she decided to take the role, McCambridge wanted to test the limits of her voice and apparently her spirit, and she went hardcore. Not only did she eat raw eggs to build up mucus and chain smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, but she also drank whiskey. She was a recovering alcoholic. She also forced herself to vomit repeatedly, all this to get her voice deep, guttural, and raw. When in recording, she experimented with different ranges and sounds, including moaning, groaning, and growling.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
It wasn't hard for me to imagine the rage. See, if it's this close in me right here, I'm only a human being. It's that close in everybody. Everybody can from this second forward. That isn't hard.
She said I should swallow raw eggs, I should smoke cigarettes constantly, and you got to give me some booze, which is going to make me nuts, and I'm getting off the wagon to do this, so I want my priest around to counsel me.
You utilize everything. Don't analyze, utilize. And I utilized the thickness, all of that stuff, for the voice of Lucifer. I don't have any now. This is clear. But when it wasn't, I could use all of that garbage down there.
The most curious things would happen in her throat. Double and triple sounds would emerge at once. Wheezing sounds, very much akin to what you could imagine a person inhabited by various demons would sound like.
I don't think they had to do this, but they did. They tore up a sheet and put me in restraints with around my neck and my arms behind the chair and my knees and my feet so that I would feel like Linda Blair, whom I've never met, while she was carrying on in the bed, that I would be doing the same thing physically.
Jesus Christ, God and Lord of all creation.
Basically, she performed it under great duress, and I was like stunned at what she put herself and allowed me to put her through in order to accomplish this.
It doesn't appear that the level of dedication and questionable tactics bothered Friedkin or concerned him at the slightest. After learning those little tidbits of insight to the lengths Friedkin was willing to have the people in his care go to, the makeup and special effects, even though insane at the time, were considerably mild inconveniences. Linda Blair endured 3 hours to put on and 1 hour to take off the makeup every day with contacts that were painful and irritating. The demon face, by the way, was the rejected makeup ideas for Regan that were tested on film and used in the movie in a sneaky, subliminal, get-under-your-skin kind of way, flashing in random everyday moments, as well as the throes of possession. Max von Sydow's makeup also took hours to apply and take off each time his scenes required him to be older, transforming him from the 43-year-old man that he was at the time of filming to a man in his 70s. The makeup and prosthetics were so extensive that it left him with the inability to show emotion in his features. And not to leave any stone of morality unturned, Friedkin used the actual audio tapes of the exorcism of Roland Doe on the set during the filming. Sorry, can you even imagine waking up in the morning and knowing that this is the stuff that you're going to have to listen to all day? But I gotta say, I would not at all be surprised to see Friedkin at a crossroads, pen dipped in his own blood, ready to bargain with the devil himself to ensure the success of this film. Number 2. There were 2 real cases of possession that inspired William Blatty to write The Exorcist. Roland Doe is the most known case that Blatty gained inspiration from in 1949. A teenager, only known by the pseudonym Roland Doe, started to experience strange noises and events, like knocking and scratching sounds like rats in the walls, moving of heavy furniture, his bed shaking with him in it. You know, the usual sophomoric pranks that any self-respecting, attention-seeking demon would initially create. With time, though, the pranks turned into possession of a more uncomfortable nature, and his Lutheran parents sought help from the Catholic Church, which is kind of major. He was given an exorcism, which was successful. It wasn't until after his death at the age of 85 that his real name and identity of Ronald Hunkler was released in 2021. He had not continued a life of faith after the success of his exorcism. And according to his longtime companion, he lived in fear that someone would find out he was the boy possessed that Blatty got his inspiration from for the scariest movie ever made. Ronald confessed to her that he was never possessed, that everything was concocted, and that he was just a bad boy. I have a lot to say about this guy, so yeah, I'll probably do a video on him. Anna Uckland, on the other hand, the exorcism of Anna Uckland in 1928 was not the result of some spoiled brat trying to get mommy's attention. This girl was going through some real trauma. Her exorcism was performed at a parish in Iowa that was deemed the longest exorcism ever recorded, and kept under so much scrutiny that the woman's identity is still under great speculation. Her torment started when she was 14 years old and lasted until her last exorcism at the age of 40. It's a really heartbreaking, tragic, and terrifying story. And like I said, I have done a more in-depth video about the case. So if you're interested, check that out. Number 3, real priests were used in the movie. Real priests were used in the movie not just as technical consultants to the Catholic faith, but also to provide Friedkin with the knowledge of genuine Jesuit practices to keep it real. Friedkin wanted priests that could act rather than actors that could portray priests. He landed on Father Birmingham as Father Canavan and Father William O'Malley as Father Dyer and Jason Miller as Father Karras. Jack Nicholson wanted and was considered for the role of Father Karras, but Friedkin found him too unholy and thought no one would believe that he was a priest. And this was before The Shining, which is really apt because he's terribly devilish looking. But Nicholson didn't have a problem overcoming and moving on to bigger and better things. After all, he was nominated for 12 Academy Awards and won 3 of them. So the part was slated to be played by Stacy Keach, but Jason Miller, an unknown playwright and stage actor, contacted Friedkin, convincing him that he knew what it was like to be a man with conflicting doubts about his faith. Before acting, Miller had been raised Catholic, went to Jesuit school and university, studying English and philosophy, and he studied to be a priest for 3 years, but decided against it. Does anyone know that joke that Steve Martin did about philosophy? It rings true here that unlike other subjects you study in college, once you leave, you forget. With philosophy, you remember just enough to screw up the rest of your life. Miller had been experiencing his own crisis of faith at the time, and that played perfectly into Friedkin's belief in realism in acting. Method. Miller also prepared for the role by living with priests for months and reading the diary of Roland Doe, or Ronald Hunkler from the Church Files, like the X-Files for the Catholic faith. Wait, wouldn't any file from the church be an X-Files, since they are all under the category of I want to believe? Miller felt the torment in his own life that Father Karras was enduring in the film, and played the character so well that he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Number 4. The Exorcist is cursed. It was rumored and believed by some that because of the subject matter and the making of the film brought forward evil that was responsible for too many coincidences and acts of God. Days into the shooting, there was a fire caused by a bird flying into the fuse box. Okay, really creepy. The fire destroyed the entire set except for Reagan's room, which was left untouched. Production was delayed 6 weeks. There was also a carpenter and a crewman that lost some fingers and toes, and then there were the losses of life. Surrounding the film and its release, 9 deaths occurred. Cast member Jack McGowan, the man who played Burke Dennings, the character the demon threw out the window, died just 1 week after filming his scenes. The woman that played Father Karras' mother died, Von Sydow's brother died, Linda Blair's grandfather died, the man who refrigerated the set died, the janitor for the building was shot and killed, the assistant cameraman's baby died, and a real priest who gave Jason Miller a protective medal to keep him safe, he died too. Maybe he should have kept the medal. And if that were not enough, then there were the events that happened to actor Jason Miller. Miller took his wife and his child for a day at the beach, and his child, Jordan, was hit by a motorbike. He was injured so badly that he was struggling for his life in hospital with a 50-50 chance of survival. Filming was suspended, but when resumed, Friedkin used this opportunity, to elicit real emotion from Miller and film the scene when Father Karras gets drunk and emotional after his mother dies alone in the mental facility. That was Miller's real frustration, anger, and sorrow for his son's accident. Okay, another kind of crazy thing, and this is really weird. Miller's son, Jordan, did survive that accident. But in January of 2024, at 56 years old, Jordan was crossing the street on his way to work, and he was hit by a city bus and killed. Very Final Destination right there. With Friedkin's requirements that everything be as real as possible, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't secretly calling for a demonic possession. He started feeling superstitious about attracting something evil to the set and those working on the film. He wanted and requested an exorcism be performed on the set, but was refused, and Father Birmingham performed a blessing on the set with everyone present instead. I think it was all rather convenient that the set was cursed. More rumor equals more hysteria, equals more exposure, equals more demand, equals more money at the box office, and equals a better secure career for Friedkin. And my criticism is warranted by number 5. So the fifth and last twisted thing about this movie is Friedkin's abuse of his crew. Friedkin not only had a volatile temper with screaming and yelling sessions, so much so that crying on the set was reoccurring, but he also used violence to get real reactions from his actors. Friedkin was known for and admitted that he used the firing of a gun on set while an actor was in scene to get real shocked reactions. Now, there are no shooting scenes in this film, so there shouldn't have even been a gun on set, much less fire one during a scene. He, of course, claimed that it was only a prop gun he fired, so no big deal. When he pulled this stunt on Jason Miller, Miller became pissed. He was livid. Miller stated that he was a trained actor and could act surprised with believability without needing such dramatics. Friedkin also used this tactic on Ellen Burstyn with similar results. The rest of the crew didn't have it any easier. Friedkin used rotten meat and eggs on set to reproduce the smell described in the documented cases of possession. Friedkin was not fazed by the fact that it was unnecessary for the crew not on film to be vomiting. And when Ellen Burstyn asked Friedkin where she could vomit because the smell was so nauseating, he pointed to the set floor, like he didn't care if what he was doing was over the top and unnecessary. Now, why would he go to these lengths? After all, viewers can't smell the movie. He once again used the "I want the viewer to believe it's real" line. Apparently, he had no faith in the acting abilities of the actors he hired. So much so that he didn't even bother with actors or consent when using footage of real patients in a mental institution that was filmed in secret. No consent from patients or their families suffering the real effects of mental illness. Friedkin even hit Father O'Malley across the face just before the scene in which Father Dyer comforts his dying friend, Father Scariest. The shaking and crying were the real effects of a man who was not a trained actor being abused just to get authenticity. More abuse? Ellen Burstyn suffered real injuries. During the scene in which Chris McNeil is trying to protect her daughter from herself, Regan hits Chris and she is thrown back onto the floor. In reality, the rigging that was to pull Ellen Burstyn back was too powerful. She told Friedkin as much. Ellen Burstyn said in an interview, "Billy said, well, it has to look real." And I said, "I know it has to look real, but I'm telling you, I could get hurt." And so he said, "Okay, don't pull her so hard." But then I'm not sure that he didn't cancel that behind my back because the guy smashed me into the floor. To me, this statement is huge. She's telling an interview that this director was not worthy of being trusted. Ellen landed on the floor so hard it caused her injury to her coccyx, the little tail at the end of your spine. Her screams of pain were real, but Friedkin kept her reactions in the film, feeling the realism benefited the movie. They are called actors for a reason. They are trained to act. You do not have to put people in harm's way to make real pain. They can act. And Linda Blair suffered the worst of Friedkin's abuse. Many actresses refused to play the role of the demon-possessed little girl, Regan. Among them, Jamie Lee Curtis, Carrie Fisher, and Denise Nickerson, the girl from Willy Wonka fame. Her parents read the script and were like, oh, hell no. Friedkin claimed that he auditioned over 600 young female actors and chose Linda because she was stable and a Christian that didn't believe in the devil. He didn't want her to be affected by the material of the movie. He liked her innocence and thought she was authentic. And I'm sorry, but I have a feeling that Friedkin was turned down by so many parents that read the script that he was getting desperate. Linda's mother jumped at the chance of fame and fortune for her daughter to be in a major movie, and Friedkin took advantage. Linda's mother was even in the movie playing a nurse. Linda was tortured. She was a child that endured hours and hours, day after day, of physical abuse in sub-freezing temperatures. The crew named Regan's room in the film Hell's Icebox because it was kept at negative 30 degrees. So the air you see from the actors breathing is real, and some even suffered frostbite despite wearing parkas. All Linda was wearing were long johns and a nightgown. She would be shivering and crying from the cold, but she wanted to please Friedkin, so she didn't complain. Not that he would have done anything anyway. The mechanical device that made her look like she was thrashing around in her bed actually broke her back, and her cries in the movie of "it hurts, were fucking real. But to Friedkin, this was gold and fit right into his sick, realistic desires. It was stated that Linda didn't understand what she was doing and she was okay with the horrendous things that she had to do and say, but she was 12 years old. She had no idea of the implications that playing this part would impact the rest of her life or how people would react to this character. Did she know how to ask for help or even if anyone would listen? She was a child that was not protected. These people took advantage of her. In fact, the only one that had a problem with the treatment of Linda and spoke up about it was not her mother, but Ellen Bernstein, reminding everyone that she was just a child. Even after filming and the release of the movie, Linda required security guards because people that had seen the movie were threatening her. Like Ellen Bernstein suffering permanent back pain, Linda Blair's back injury developed into scoliosis, and she was plagued with pain and suffering for years. She also suffered PTSD and actually sued Warner Brothers later for negligence and trauma and settled out of court. The interviews that I've seen of many of the actors seem like they're explaining things that happened on the set and behavior that they endured at the hands of Friedkin and have this look or pause in expectation. Like, doesn't this seem wrong? Am I crazy or is this unhinged? It seems like even the actors realized that it was abusive and it was not okay to treat people this way. But since no one else seemed to care, they never said anything otherwise. Well, there probably would have been some backlash or blacklisting. Ask any woman. I can almost see Friedkin licking his lips with anticipation at the level of soul-crushing dedication that he pushed from those around him. He used his power as a director and the knowledge that these actors were under contracts to push all boundaries and maintain prolonged torture sessions for believability. He used all resources he could imagine: sub-zero temperatures, the tapes of the real exorcism conducted by the Roman Catholic Church, rotten meat, real priests, real pain, real shock, real violence, real screams to bring every real opportunity for a demonic possession. It's not hard to imagine that he would be delighted by the hysteria surrounding the movie and its curse. It would not surprise me if Friedkin had a hand in the creation of this feeling in other more sinister ways as well. I've covered guys with this kind of mentality before, and they were diagnosed as sadists, but they did kill people. So, it's dark shit. Please let me know your experiences or thoughts with watching The Exorcist, or does learning any of these twisted things make you see the film in a different light? I know my own experience of watching this movie briefly as a child had an impact on my awareness of what evil monsters lurk in the shadows, and watching it as an adult gave me another disturbing perspective of the evil that is lurking in humans. As I said in my video about the real exorcism of Anna Uckland, I did not watch the movie again for these videos. There are movies that you just don't need to see more than once, and I think I'm good for my lifetime. Thank you for listening to the end, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out my other videos about Dennis Nilsson, who wanted life to imitate art, which I also did a complimentary video about the art in which he got his inspiration from. I also did a review on Netflix's series Ed Gein, which had some interesting interpretations of his story. As always, thank you for watching. Be safe. Sending you silver streaks of wisdom.